Hello. This week for my demonstrative speech, since my career choice that I chose was law, and last week I explained what a lobbyist is and the importance of those, I decided to explain the legislative process. And not only the legislative process in terms of how a bill becomes a law, but also how lobbyists are a part of the legislative process. It is important to note that bills must be passed in the same congressional session they started in, and congressional sessions only last a year. So most bills that are proposed will not be passed because of that fact. Most ideas don't become bills, and most bills never leave committee. Loads of bills will not last past their session, and loads of bills are never signed or vetoed by the president if they even get there. So the first part of the legislative process is an idea. For my example, I chose that someone in politics decided that it was about time we added an additional federal circuit court of appeals, and they wanted to do that the legal way. So how we would do that is you would need a law passed for that specific thing to happen, because there's nothing in the Constitution regarding the number of circuit courts. So when it comes to the judicial branch, there's 3 levels of courts. So you're going to have your just your basic federal courts, your Court of Appeals, and then the Supreme Court. So there are 2 different ways something can get to the federal court. If you either sue the federal government, or you're doing something that's considered commerce. If one person in one state is doing something that affects someone in another state, that's automatically going to get put in federal court. Or if you sue somebody on the state level and it gets escalated to the state Supreme Court, if it's still not settled by that point, it could be taken up by a federal court. Then you can appeal to a circuit court of appeals. And if you look at the map of the United States, there are districts that are broken up, the circuit court map. And so for this idea, we're going to try to add an additional circuit court. And we would do that because we think that the people of a particular court aren't being represented because there are too many people living in one that already exists. So a representative has to sponsor the bill for it to be presented in front of the legislative body. So first, the idea has to be drawn up, is what we call it, when a bill is written, or when an idea is written to become a bill. And anyone can draw up a bill. You can draw up a bill and email it to one of your representatives right now. And a lot of people don't know that, but I'm sure you can find some notable examples online of citizens that drew up bills. Most of the time, the representative that sponsors the bill is the one that drew it up. Most of the time, if a law is going to be passed, that's what happens. And so for this particular example, the person that's going to be drawing up this bill is a member of the Senate, since that is the elite house in our bicameral legislature. So the bill is first going to get put in committee, because it would be a waste of time for the entire Senate to vote on the bill as it stands. So it's going to go directly into the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is made up of a group of members of our federal Senate who specialize in the judiciary. They help confirm Supreme Court justices. They're the people that do the most research and have the most knowledge on things that concern the judiciary. The Judiciary Committee is so big and has so much influence, it is actually broken into several subcommittees. So for this example, it would go into the Subcommittee of Federal Courts, Oversight, Agency Action, and Federal Rights. So then once this subcommittee meets, they're going to discuss, they're going to debate, they're going to research, they're going to edit the bill. They could strike it down right here and it never leave the subcommittee. They're going to do several things to try and make sure the bill is in the best version that it can. If the bill passes the subcommittee, it's going to be presented into the entire Judiciary Committee. And this is when lobbyists start playing a part, because lobbyists tend to either represent citizens, interest groups, or corporations. And they're going to have the most money, and they're going to be the most specialized, because while you may be a senator who's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, you're going to be very busy. Press conferences, meeting with people of your state, signings, trying to read up on as much law as you can. You're not going to have enough time to study the thing that you say you're specialized in. So they meet with people outside of the legislative body who are experts in their field, and that's what lobbyists are for. If the bill leaves committee, it's going to be presented in front of the entire Senate, and anyone, a member of the Senate, expert or no expert, someone who was just elected or a senior official, can once again debate, strike it down, try and edit it to make it the best that it can. And if it gets voted all the way through the Senate, it'll go through the House, where it will go through pretty much the exact same process. If it gets all the way through the House of Representatives, then a conference committee is going to be formed. Members of the Senate and members of the House are going to meet together and form their own committee and do the same thing. Lobbyists can also be an important part here. In a perfect world where there's no corruption, this wouldn't happen a lot, but unfortunately we do not live in one of those. So a lot of times, especially lobbyists that are representing corporations, dump hundreds of millions of dollars into maybe even the smallest changes of laws that allow their corporations to continue getting away with stuff that should be illegal. Or on the other hand, they may be dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into striking the bill down or editing it to where it helps them but doesn't hurt their competitors. If the bill passes the conference committee, it's going to be put on the president's desk. And the president of the United States has 10 days to respond to any incoming bills. The most common result of this is the president never looks at it at all, either because they didn't have time or they didn't like it but didn't want to veto and didn't want to be overridden. There are several reasons, but it's called a pocket veto because the president will typically put it in the desk drawer and never look at it again. It's pretty unfortunate. In some instances, it can be considered an abuse of power. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's why Andrew Johnson was impeached, because the 13th and 14th Amendments, he just pocket vetoed them, and that was an abuse of power. If the president signs the bill, it becomes a law as it's written, or the president can stamp it and saying that he does not approve, or she, of course, we never know, could not approve of the bill, and in that case, it would go to the House of Representatives again. If 2/3 of the House of Representatives vote to make the bill a law against the president's wishes, it will move to the Senate. If the Senate, if 2/3 of them can agree that it should become a law, then it will become a law once it leaves the Senate. So yeah, it's very important for most citizens, maybe even all citizens, to know not only how important the political process is, especially when it comes to the legislative branch, but how it affects all of us. Because I feel as though, we live in a time where politics is becoming more and more personal, more people are becoming educated as to the political world, which I think is personally a good thing. And I think that we should know how our laws are written. So that's why I wanted to demonstrate how to do this today.